But we got to get to this Trae Young stuff. And for those of you who listen every day, and we hope you do, when Trae Young put out his first episode of his podcast, and Mike and I, as a matter of fact, where were we, Mike? We were down somewhere. Oh, we were at Mercedes-Benz.
Right.
Okay. And we were like, Chris, our producer, said, hey, Trae Young, he's got his front podcast. And we were like, great. Let's hear what Trae Young has to say. It was the day the Falcons had practice down
didn't
there.
really give you much. It was kind of close to the vest. And, you want content. Everybody wants, today the buzzword is give me some content. I want explosive content. So these are some explosive topics. Do I get explosive content?
Well, the first episode, and again, I don't know how many he's got out, but this is getting better. And I said to Mike that day, you know what? Here's your chance to explain everything that we've wondered about. Right. If you feel like we, not us, this show, but just generally speaking, the media has been inaccurate about things that have happened, we haven't, then here's your chance to explain it. So Trae, on his podcast, Mike, talked about why he and Lloyd Pierce bumped heads.
I think the reason me and Lloyd really couldn't see eye to eye on certain things is because he wants to win just as bad as I did.
Right.
But the team we had wasn't built to win at that time. And so I feel like he was brought in to be a development coach and I was trying to win. You know what I'm saying? Like, and those two things just don't work well with each other. Cause like there's a lot of days like I was working my ass off. Like my second year, like I was working hard trying to win and we weren't winning as much. I was an all-star starter like my second year.
Crazy numbers that year.
And I was playing hard, but I just feel like we didn't see eye to eye, and I just feel like he didn't believe in me as much as the organization did at times.
He didn't believe in me as much as the organization did. Now, I do agree, okay, because when Lloyd was hired, LP was hired, he was allegedly, okay, goes back to he's going to develop young talent and help Trae develop. That also, part is true.
And also a defensive-minded coach from his time in Philadelphia.
Correct.
That was part of the pedigree that they were looking for. And then, after he got dismissed, the word came out that, through the grapevine, that there was a league meeting about rules and that Lloyd, of all people, Lloyd Pierce was using Trae as an example of guys jumping into fouls at the three-point line, which would be kind of counterintuitive. Why would you say that about one of your own players? Yeah. So it seemed like near the end it got toxic. They weren't laughing at the same jokes. And then when Nate came in, that same guys that Trae's saying weren't ready, they went all the way to the Eastern Conference. Because remember, he gets fired late in the season.
That's right.
Nate makes this amazing run, and we nearly get to the NBA Finals.
Yeah.
With those same guys.
All right, it's Dukes and Bell at Sports Radio 92.9 The Game. We're letting you hear Trae, in his own words, about why some of this stuff happened. All right.
And Winston, Carl, by the way.
Thank you, Turtle. That is, yes, Winston is his friend that is jumping in there and going, amazing season. So that's the other voice
you have
hear.
to have a moderator, Carl, for a podcast.
Okay, I guess. Trae Young. You remember this? Maybe you don't. If you're a Hawks fan, you do.
We talked about it.
Game 2 lost at Miami 2022. He flies private.
So in other words, the team gets down to the airport. They're on the charter. That's a plane for the team. And it later came out after the season was over that Trae actually jetted home solo.
This is from Trae's podcast. It's called From the Point, by the way. Here's how he described that situation.
I remember my fiance being pregnant at the time, and I really wanted them to come down to Miami to watch the game, watch the series. And so got on a plane because it was during COVID, like, you know what I'm saying? People still getting sick and people like into COVID, whatever. And she's pregnant. So I'm not about to, if I can do it, I'm going to do it. So put them on a plane, whatever, send them to Miami. We're in Miami, whatever, after the game, second game. The whole time, like I told the GM at the time that I was going back. So like, I mean, that wasn't nothing false. I
Then
told
you were flying back with your family.
That I was flying back with my family.
Correct.
Like, so I remember telling them that before we even got to Miami.
Now, that's the first we're hearing of this.
That's what I'm saying.
So this is interesting to me, and that completely changes the narrative.
That's what I'm saying, Mike. See, this is why when we always say, hey, call the show.
Right.
You can tell us. You can tell Atlanta what's going on. This is the curious thing about that whole situation. Now, inside of the Hawks organization at that time, really nobody was speaking about it because they didn't want to make it a distraction. We were in a playoff series. You didn't need the GM or the coach at that time coming out going, I can't believe he flew private.
And at the time, again, that's Travis Schlenk and Nate.
Correct. So, Trae, what about telling your teammates that you were going to fly private back? Did you do that?
I didn't tell my teammates that I was leaving. It was after a game, after a loss, whatever. Nobody talks to each other, even after regular season losses. Like, we're all talking, whatever, but I get it. It was the playoffs, so it's a different stage. But for me, that's the only thing I take out and I could have been better at. And I remember calling Lou the next day because of just hearing from talking to my GM, whatever, that some of the guys were asking where I was. And he was just telling me how that was the only thing I could have done better. Just tell my teammates that I was flying back with the family. Like, he wouldn't have tripped. Nobody would have tripped. Like, everything would have been great. Like, if I could have done anything better, that's the only part I would have changed.
Okay, so again, Lou Williams tells him, look, you got to just better communication with the team. Otherwise, that you don't feel like you've given him, the big time. Big time in your team, I'm out. And if you explain it with the pregnant wife and the way he explained it in the first part of this podcast, I don't think I'd have a problem with that as a teammate.
I don't either. I don't think anybody would have a problem with that.
When you ghost the team, that's when trouble starts.
Yes, but see, this gets back to being the leader and being the guy that communicates not just this kind of stuff. It's not just the big things. It's the small things.
Right.
It's the small things. You want to connect with your teammates. You want to make sure everybody's on the same page. Yes, I hear you. He says even during the regular season, guys don't talk. I don't necessarily agree with that. I don't know if that's the case. And when you go into the locker room, it's not completely silent. Mm-hmm. Guys in many cases are saying, hey, where are you going to go get something to eat? Are you going out? What are you going to do? Even in a loss. But you can't just dismiss this, Mike, when you are, again, the highest paid guy on the team and you don't say anything. So I'm glad he's owning this. Yeah. I know it's in the past, but, guys, he's got to learn.
And it was one of those things that came up when we talked about the leadership issue back in the spring when Nate got fired and he was nowhere to be found. And that's one of the things we brought up. So this is why guys like having this forum, because they can put it in their own words without a media type, print journalist, whatever, misquoting them or taking them out of context.
But he could say this on this show, Mike. He could say this, and nobody would dispute this.
Correct. And we were hoping at some point we'll get a chance to get Trae either on the phone or face-to-face. We had his dad on a few weeks back. But I'm down with it. I just like to find out what's going on. Now, I don't know. I disagree again about nobody talks after a loss. No, it's not like it's silent in a vacuum. It's, you got more games. And by the way, it wasn't the end of the series. Correct. It was a loss in the series.
In the series, correct. And, now, if you lose the NBA Finals by 1 point, last second shot, and you come back and you're distraught, I get it. Nobody's really talking. That's a different deal. Not in game 2 of the series. That's where I would dispute that. But nevertheless, those are his words. One other thing we want to let you hear is Dukes and Bell Sports Radio 92.9 The Game. And why are we playing this? This is the first time anybody's talked about it. It's the first time Trae said, hey, here's why Lloyd and I didn't get along, whether you believe it or not. Here's what happened when I flew back private and y'all gave me crap for it. Here's what happened. Well, Trae, what about being labeled as a coach killer from his podcast, The Point?
Who knows? It could be just because of that one Knicks series and people look at me as a villain and somebody they can just throw hate on and throw certain names and labels at. Yeah. Could be that. It could be, being in Atlanta and we just haven't won a chip yet. You're going to find out the more negative things. You're going to try to point out the negative things in the situation, especially if you're not winning, more than you are writing the good stories about him or what he's doing for the community. How he's impacting this and that. Like, they don't want to preach those things. They just want to label the coach killer and certain things like that. So I don't think that helps with it either.
Yeah, and as we say all the time on this show, there's a lot of guys around this league and around the Hawks certainly are involved in the community and doing stuff all the time. But in this case, when you are the star player, you're going to get a little bit of heat. You're going to be like the quarterback draws all the heat. The star point guard making the most money with the Supermax deal is going to get some heat.
How many coaches can you go through, though, without getting to a point where people feel like you're a perennial contender? I'm asking.
Jordan had Kevin Lockery, then Collins, and then they got to Phil.
Okay. So
and Jordan's always the benchmark for everything, right? It always starts and ends there, year 6.
And the reason why I'm asking that is because Trae is right. Listen, there are a lot of positives he is doing and a lot of things he's trying to incorporate himself into. As a matter of fact, guys, I don't even know if you guys knew this. He did a camp here in June. I don't even know if people talked about it. He's trying to do some things. Or maybe it's coming up in July. But the point is, Mike, if you go through 3, 4, 5 coaches and we haven't gotten close to winning, that is going to follow you, whether you want it to or not. It's unfortunate, but if you go, well, this guy, because he's the mainstay, Trae is now the longest tenured Hawk on this team. We just traded John Collins. So if we go through another 3 or 4 years and 2 more coaches, which I hope that's not the case, what do you say?
Well, this gets back to my point about free agency or, trades or something to improve this team. At what point does Trae also look at the organization and say, organizationally, if I'm going, and a lot of Trae fans love to throw the stats in my face when I talk about leadership and those guys that don't mean nothing.
28-10, right?
Yeah, 28-10, 20 again. But if he's putting up 28-10, 28-10, you keep doing that and you're not going anywhere, then, and Trae's saying, where's my help? Where's the big man? Where's my guy who's like my Robin to my Batman? By the way, a couple of guys say, Carl, that part of the reason why Trae's not coming on the show is after you ran Keanu Neal out of town. Players don't want that smoke.
Yeah, listen, first of all, I didn't run him out, okay? Brother didn't like the question. That's all it was.
We were working from home during COVID, and my connection dropped out. And I'm listening, on the I can hear it, but I can't do the live broadcast.
Oh, that's right.
And
we
so
were home.
I hear
we
the
were
question,
home.
and Ken's like, "What? What do you mean?" Carl's like, "You went total, but the way you said it was so great. It was like Howard Cosell. You're not the player you were 2 years ago, Ken. Constantly banged up, physically unable to perform. People say George Foreman will kill you in the ring." And that's when Keanu said, "What? What do you mean?" So by the way,
his response was, "Oh, wow." But no, listen, Trae, and I've said this to you guys, and I'm not saying this in a derogatory way because there's some guys around town who think they're in the know. I'm not going to mention their names. They don't get stories. They don't know anybody. Right. Trae and his people and his dad are cool with this show. I'm telling you.
Right.
Everybody don't believe that whatever you're hearing out there, whatever you think you see. A lot of times you see stuff on social media, you go, "Oh, it ain't true. We're just out there having fun." Okay.
And by the way, have you been listening to the show the last few months? I don't want Trae to leave. I think you build around Trae. The thing is, you got to go get another star player in here. And if you missed it earlier today, guys, Sean Devaney joined us, NBA Insider, and he said, if you're a Hawks fan waiting for a big move, in the words of Willy Wonka, you get nothing. So don't expect the Hawks to do anything because they're assuming they're going to sign DeJounte Murray to a long-term deal, guys like Okongwu, and to do that, they've got to have cap flexibility. So basically, you're not going to get anybody of note. You're not going to get a star brought in here in the next couple of weeks.